Good afternoon, and thank you all so much for joining us. I want to begin by thanking our Attorney General, Rob Bonta, for coming here to the Visitation Valley community. It's really great to have you here in San Francisco, but especially in this particular community, and thank you for co-hosting this roundtable discussion that was so important to talk about the challenges that exist around hate crimes in this city and in this state, especially as we have seen an uptick in violent hate crimes against so many of our communities in San Francisco and the Bay Area and across the state and nation. In just a few short months on the job, he's already taken action on a number of initiatives related to criminal justice reform and racial justice, which are issues that we all care about deeply in San Francisco. Thanks to the commitment of the community leaders that are joining us here today, so many folks who have been really on the ground addressing these issues for decades. Our police chief, Bill Scott, who is with us as well. We just had a very productive discussion on how we can continue to combat hate crimes by working together. We know that there's no shortcut to this work, and finding the root cause and solutions will require a continuous work in these and continuous conversations of sharing of ideas, not just when something happens, but also proactively when something isn't happening. To address hate crimes at their core, we need buy-in from local community, support from law enforcement, and a commitment from all levels of government. Here in San Francisco, we're steadfast in ensuring that every community is heard and protected. Whether it is work around violence prevention and racial justice, our partners standing with us today have years of experience and have worked tirelessly and collaboratively with one another to combat these issues. Today, as I said, we are in Visitation Valley because we remember when Grandma Huang, as she was brutally attacked almost 2 years just a block away from here at the Visitation Valley playground. Grandma Huang was doing her morning exercise when that tragic incident happened, and sadly, she struggled for a year before passing away earlier this year. None of this should have happened, and we want to send a clear message. An attack on one of us is an attack on all of us. We will continue to stand in solidarity, and here in San Francisco, we will do everything we can to bring perpetrators of crimes of this nature to justice. Leaders here are taking action and banding together and partnering, and we're doing so because we know how important this is. An example of this work can be found in our expansion of the Street Violence Intervention Program with Community Youth Center and self-help for the elderly and members of the Street Violence Intervention Program. And I want to thank Sarah Wang for really taking, aggressive action and working with the community to make sure that people know that we're going to have eyes and ears on the streets, but we're also going to make sure that we support and look out for our seniors. Part of this expansion includes patrolling neighborhoods in the city in response to hate crimes against our Asian community. Another part of the program provides seniors with escorts to go with them while buying groceries and seeing doctors so they can feel safe when running their errands. Our goals with these two programs are to build the trust of our diverse communities and increase public safety for everyone in San Francisco. Just over a month ago, I was tagging along with Sarah Wan and the members of the Street Violence Intervention Program as they were engaging with merchants and customers along this commercial corridor here on Leland Avenue. Right here is a neighborhood where merchants and residents often feel left out and isolated, but when I had a chance to talk with merchants and customers from the barbershops, from the restaurants and the coffee shops, they felt hopeful to see this effort and this partnership, and they asked that we stay consistent, especially the community engagement from CYC and SVIP. The library here has offered its support to those members to use the restroom or to have a place to relax. And I'm sure many of these great places to eat along Leland Avenue have been some of their favorites. It takes a village, and we know how to do this in San Francisco. This really gives me hope because we're making a difference, and residents and merchants are feeling the difference. We're committed to addressing xenophobia, injustice, and discrimination through our partnerships and investments, and we are here to support the Visitation Valley community and all of our neighborhoods in San Francisco. And I look forward to continuing this great work with Attorney General Bonta, who knows how critical these issues are to San Francisco. Before I bring the Attorney General up, I just want to recognize him for his efforts in listening to communities across the state. As leaders, it's easy for us to sit in the offices and go about doing our work and to lose a connection with actually what's happening to people every single day on the ground. The fact that Attorney General Bonta is committed to doing not just the roundtable here in San Francisco, but throughout the state in all of the major cities is so key to turning things around and keeping people safe. He's not waiting for the attacks to occur. He is being here, being proactive so that we can make a difference. He's here to listen and to take action, and we will be working together hand in hand on policy changes, on investments, and on whatever needs to be done so no one has to be a victim of a crime in any part of our city or our state. And ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Attorney General Rob Bonta.
Well, thank you all for being here today, and thank you, Mayor Breed, for your very kind remarks. Thank you for your leadership, for seeing and valuing and fighting for all of the beautifully diverse communities right here in San Francisco. As we talked about inside, San Francisco has been a leader, a model, has often and so consistently demonstrated policies and approaches that lift people up and make our communities stronger, and has often been a place where the state of California has scaled up those policies that started right here in San Francisco. So I'm thankful and proud for the opportunity to be here in San Francisco today with Mayor Breed, with Chief Scott, with all of the great community leaders that are here today that you'll hear from momentarily, and to talk about how we move forward. And I was very inspired, and I'm leaving very hopeful and optimistic about our shared future, our common future, and our common commitment to addressing the epidemic of hate crimes, that spike in hate incidents that have impacted so many communities. No community is immune, as we know. We certainly are well aware of the huge increases in anti-API hate violence and hate crimes, but our black community, our Latino community, our Sikh community, Muslim community, Jewish community, our LGBTQ community, our community, disability community, have all suffered. And our conversation today was a good reminder that we're all in this together, that we're going to move forward together or not at all. And we can move forward when we have conversation, when we listen, when we communicate, as we just did. And so, today is very important to me because this is the launch of 13 of these roundtables that I'll be doing across the state, where we sit in community, where we join a common circle and talk about our challenges and how to move forward together. And it was very appropriate that we started in San Francisco today, given San Francisco's historical, traditional, consistent leadership, and how it has always demonstrated that we celebrate our diversity, and our diversity is our strength. And so I appreciate the opportunity to be here. And over the next few weeks, I'll be in different places all over the state, having similar conversations to uplift best practices, to highlight and illuminate our solutions so that we can prevent and heal as we address this epidemic of hate throughout our state and throughout our nation. And as California's Attorney General, I know many of you have heard this before, I see myself as being the people's attorney. And it's very important for me to see and to value and to protect every community. And for so many of our communities, for too many of our communities, right now we are in a full-on state of crisis, a full state of emergency when it comes to hate. And, you know, the statistics are alarming and they're shocking. We know that across California, hate crime events increased 31% across the board last year. Anti-Asian hate crimes in particular increased an alarming 107%. And right here in San Francisco, home to the LGBTQ rights movement, anti-gay hate crimes accounted for over 25% of all hate crimes in the last decade. And of course, statistics can illuminate and they tell a story, but they don't tell the full story. And so I was very thankful and grateful for the opportunity to hear directly from community leaders, from impacted community members who shared their own stories, personal stories, painful stories about themselves, about the communities that they fight for, and are trying to uplift. And I appreciated that conversation today. And, you know, it's going to take all of us to do this work. And there's no, you know, panacea, there's no cure-all, but there are many ways to make progress, and we heard about many of those ways today, whether it be addressing intergenerational trauma or providing in language culturally competent services, being victim-centered, cross-racial healing circles. The list went on and on for how we can make progress. And when we can make progress, we should. When we can take a step forward together, we must. And so we identified many pathways to improve our work going forward. And you know, in a few weeks, I'll be in my 5th month in office. And in the days since I've sworn in, addressing the epidemic of hate, recognizing that too many of us for too long in this state have felt the sting of hate. Too many communities, you know, myself included. This is personal work for me as well. We got to work on day one, taking on the forces of hate. And that's why I've established the Racial Justice Bureau to help tackle the rise of hate. That's why I've issued new guidance and resources to help the public and law enforcement better understand and address hate crimes in California. It's why we've launched the Office of Community Awareness, Response, and Engagement to directly engage with and respond to the needs of communities. And it's why I've pledged to keep working, to do more, to lean in, and to continue this fight, and doing that working with our local communities like right here in San Francisco. Because we know that we must protect those hurt by the forces of hate and hold accountable those who perpetrate hate violence against our neighbors. And, you know, it didn't always seem like this, but it's like this now. For many of us, everyday life has come with an additional worry, whether it's going to the grocery store, picking up your children from school, riding a bus, going for a morning walk. In these moments, too many of us right now are asking ourselves, could I be next? And the stakes are too high to sit back. As mentioned by the mayor, we're only blocks away from where an 89-year-old grandmother was senselessly assaulted at a playground and left to die. And hate and prejudice cannot and will not be tolerated, plain and simple. As your Attorney General, with the full weight of the law and the California Constitution behind me, let me say this: there is no place for hate in California, or anywhere, anytime, period. Full stop, end of story. And across our different cultures and identities, today we came together to affirm this fundamental truth. Across our differences, we are united in making sure that our neighborhoods and our cities are safe and healthy and prosperous for all. Nothing is more important. Let me close by saying this. My parents are social justice champions. My dad marched in Selma during the Civil Rights Movement. Both my parents worked for the United Farm Workers of America. I grew up as a young child. I had the blessing and the privilege of growing up in La Paz, the headquarters for the United Farm Workers Movement. From a young age, I learned from my parents, while they worked alongside iconic social justice warriors and leaders like Cesar Chavez and Dolores Huerta and Philip Vera Cruz, that when you see injustice, you need to fight to correct it. And an injustice against one is an injustice against all. So today we reaffirm the us, not the me, that we all are in this together and we will rise together or not at all. And as I take on injustice in many forms as the Attorney General, as the People's Attorney, we are very laser focused on taking on hate incidents and hate crimes. As the People's Attorney, I see you, I'll fight for you, I'll do everything in my power to keep you safe. So thank you so much for the opportunity to be here with you today. Next, we'll be hearing from Sarah Won, Executive Director of Community Youth Center.
Thank you, Mayor Breed. Thank you, Attorney General Robanta. And thank you for all the brothers and sisters behind me that representing different community in San Francisco. Today's roundtable is truly inspiring, but it's also very emotional, especially to me. I think our community, especially our Asian community, are going through a lot of pain. With the surge of the anti-Asian hate last year, even though I've been in this career for 24 years, I felt like no matter how hard our own community trying to survive and to work, it doesn't really matter unless we really work together across different communities. Like Mayor Breed said, if one community doesn't feel safe, all community doesn't feel safe. And today, when we have our own discussion talking about our story, we share a lot of similarities across different communities that we're dealing with: anti-immigrant hate, anti-Muslim hate, anti-transgender hate, anti-LGBTQ hate, all kind of hate that we're facing right now is a crisis. But at the same time, because of this roundtable, that we hear the commitment across the board, not only from the community organizations, but also through our city, our state, how we're going to coordinate together to really move forward to combat this kind of hate and violence, and to how to make sure, ensure safety for our young people, for our seniors, for everyone in San Francisco. I really feel hopeful. We did talk about the challenge that we're facing, including like underreporting, language barriers, victim services, the lack of cultural competency services across the board to support our victim. But we also talk about how important it is to really have violence prevention strategies, how we want to make sure that we don't only respond when there's a crisis, but how we can stay vigilant and stand together across the board, so that we don't always have to rely on GoFundMe, things like that, when something happened, when tragedy happened. So I really feel very hopeful, and I'm really looking forward to work together from the state and also the city level to ensure the safety of all communities. Thank you.
My name is Saro Shahinian. I'm a member of the St. Gregory Armenian Church of San Francisco. Our community was a victim of several hate crimes last year, and it rocked us. And after this meeting, we feel more secure knowing that the Attorney General, the Mayor, the Chief of Police, they've made it crystal clear that hate will not be tolerated at all, on any level, and that there are consequences to it. And division is the source of, it's a disease, and it spreads to society, and we cannot have a civil functioning society with hate. And there will be consequences and zero tolerance, and San Francisco is at the forefront of it, and we need to set an example, not just in our city, but in our state, but for the entire country, that hate will not be tolerated at all. Thank you.